Folks, hi, and welcome to Conservative Voice Radio. We're so happy you're listening. This has been a traumatic week, and it was hard to wrangle all the topics. I felt at some point, because I do the production for the show, that I was wrangling cats. If you've ever tried to do that, it's an impossibility. Unfortunately, we had started the week off with the two shootings, and we're not going to talk about that because we know ad infinitum it's been on all the media. We want to fill you in on what we're seeing as a very blatant agenda, a very dangerous agenda, a scary agenda, and we're going to try and pull it together as if we were knitting a blanket. Okay, when we put it together, we hope that you get the idea of what's being done to the American people. Let's start out first with what they have done to this president. Now, they have taken sound bites and actual words that the president has spoken, and they've taken some of them out of context. And if you're listening right now and you're thinking, I'm changing the channel, she's about to lie. Well, I can tell you that the videos don't lie. And so they've taken them from as far back as Charlottesville and claimed that this president is not only a racist, which they call him every day, but they've graduated to him being a white supremacist, onto the fact that anyone who supports him is also a white supremacist. And I will start out, I'm going to give it to my compatriots here, but I just want to point out what each of the 2020 candidates have said about him. To put it in a paragraph, if you support border enforcement, you're a racist. If you support Trump, who pushes border enforcement, you're a racist. If you don't condemn Trump for being a white supremacist, you are a white supremacist. And Democratic Texas Representative Joaquin Castro even went so far as to publish the names and addresses and businesses of companies that may have given to the Trump campaign. And that, of course, is going to cause them all kinds of problems. It's known as doxing. In other words, your documents are out there for the public to see. So this is the mantra of the candidates. So, Glenn, what do you think of what's transpired in that regard?
Well, I think the media all works together to brand individuals. And the branding last week and this week is, like you said, is to brand Trump instead of a white nationalist, which is somebody that loves their country. And we all love our country, irrespective of our race. But now they're changing that to white supremacists. And looking here at the one site you give us a look at, it has a very clear definition that that's an individual that believes his particular race, in this case the white race, is inherently superior to other races. That white people should have control over the people of other races. And to me, that's the mindset of the Communist Party. And what they're trying to do now is brand Trump. CNN, MSNBC, all your major newspapers, the big moneyed corporations that control media, all work in unison to brand an individual. And right now they're branding Donald Trump as a white supremacist. And he's come out and said he does not believe in that. Anybody like that, he totally rejects. And I think we all reject people like that walk around with an air of superiority. That's the Communist Party. In China, you have the Communist Party, and they feel like they're superior over everybody else. And Venezuela, now you have a dictator. He feels like he is superior. That's a communist ideology, and they're trying to brand Donald Trump with that right now, and the followers.
Glenn, that's a good point, because we've seen this evolution of this term for Trump just in the last couple months. At first he was just he was tolerant of the white supremacists. He just, with a couple of his advisors, he just let them kind of run roughshod over the White House. But then they said, wait a minute, he's more than just that. He's a white nationalist, which has a very specific meaning. It means something specific. Well, just in a couple, like weeks, a month maybe, he's now a white supremacist. And we've seen the news media change that term. It's evolved over just the last couple of months. And what they're trying to do, like Glenn was saying, they work in concert. They have these talking points. So now Trump's a white supremacist. And guess what, folks? You're a white supremacist, like Jan was saying, if you support Trump. And so this is an evolution to get people pitted against each other on race, just on race. And it's disgusting.
Yeah, you can see it. You're right, Peter. You can see their little pattern and how it's evolving, and you can watch it. And I would say, see how the Nazis did it before World War II, and look at that and see if you see a familiarity in the same pattern. And there was a guy called Saul Alinsky. He was a Satanist. He was a really bad dude. By the way, he was Hillary Clinton's mentor. She wrote a thesis on him, a paper on him. But anyway, his mode was call others what you are, and that'll take the people's mind off of what you're doing and put it on them. And how can they defend themselves? If you're already doing that and everything like that. So you see this taking place. It's a coup. It's a coup. And what are they doing? What are the signs of fascism? Well, they want to put everybody on a common health care. They want to, brainwash the schools, start brainwashing the kids. They've been doing that for a long time, though, by the way. And then they lie. They just out and out lie. And voter fraud. And there's a lot of other things, too. But they do these things, and you can see them.
I think they're trying.
We want to bring it to you.
They want to try to get the people, the normal people, us, to be quiet. They just want you to be quiet, because if you speak up and you resist this, you're going to be lumped into this group. And, who wants to be lumped in with a bunch of white supremacists?
Well,
come on, Jen.
Right. You don't want to do that, do you? Right?
Diane, you brought up something that is so key. The Nazis began with the Jews. What do you think? The first thing they did was put them on the trains? No. It started with belittling them. There were cartoons in the papers about them. They called them greedy and that they controlled everything. And then they had the night of the breaking glass, where they actually destroyed their businesses. Gradually, folks around them shunned them, and they were afraid to even be part of their world. So this ostracized them. Then after that, they made them wear a gold star to designate that they were different than the others. So as they are pointing a finger and saying Donald Trump is afraid of the other, or that he doesn't like the other, they are actually telling you that is what they're doing. And I am pleading with Americans, do not buy this. You have lived long enough in our country to know this is not us. We are being destroyed from within over this issue.
But the young people don't know. That's the thing.
Well, they should be listening to those older than them who have either lived this history or read about it. When I was younger, I was eager to learn from those older than me. I hope that that's still innate in our young people
Some of
today.
Them.
I hope.
And Donald Trump's been probably as long as Cortez. Twice lifetimes as Cortez? The girl from Brooklyn, the lady from Brooklyn, she's 30. Trump has had to deal with people of other races and other genders twice as long as she has, and he's been successful at it. This is not a racist man.
No.
How can you be successful in life and in business if you have a racist bone in your body? That's not what motivates you. You're motivated by opportunity, productivity, and because in a competitive market, you want the best. You don't care about the color of your skin, and the left knows this about Trump, and they don't have a winning argument.
Well, Glenn, you were right when you called it branding. Fill us in more on that theory.
Well, I like to say, and people listening should keep in mind, we're talking about what the actions are, the actual attack and so forth, and branding of Donald Trump and the Republican and his supporters. But you need to understand the policy and the method of communism and dictatorships all over the world is not to talk about the problems we may have, the housing shortage, homeless people, or health issues and so forth. Don't talk about the actual problem. You spend all your energy and your time attacking your opposition and treating them as an enemy to be destroyed. Now, that today is what we're witnessing with Donald Trump. They don't talk about the fact that unemployment's low amongst almost every group. There are countries being prosperous now because they've lowered taxes on business, which the businesses passed on to customers. They don't talk about the actual problem. It's all about attack, attack, attack. That's a policy of dictators and communists. That's part right in their manifesto. Don't talk about issues. We want the problems get worse. That gives us excuses to demand more money, more tax money, and more power from the people. Even ask them to give up their civil rights and their rights to protect themselves and their family. And so we spend a lot of energy, a lot of time explaining how they're branding and attacking, and it's a method. It's a policy of the dictatorship.
Well, and the thing that's important that you folks should remember is just as Pepsi and Coke brand their product, Nike brands their product. The first thing you're going to do if you want to immerse the country in a whole new government, get rid of the Republican form of government, is you're going to brand the people that are against that, the people that don't want you to take power. And that is essentially what's happening by this branding. So first you brand the target. And when we come back after the commercial, we're going to tell you what they do after you've been branded. And we are living it, folks. So stay tuned and we'll fill you in. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Jan Reed, and I'm sitting in as co-host today with Douglas V. Gibbs. And Doug is going to be a listener today, so I'm going to just plunge right ahead. If you are just tuning in, you would have heard us talk about how the Democrats and the far left have decided that they will target not only Donald Trump, which they've been doing for almost 3 years, but they will also go after his supporters. And first they label you. Because when you label someone, it accomplishes two things. It says that you're a good person. You are letting people know that you're better than that. And you're also pointing out, by the way, you should blame them, shame them, and boycott them. So that is step 2. And that's what we're in right now. There's a couple of episodes going on, which I am going to have my compatriots jump in and tell you about, starting with the first one, which is Julian Castro, who, as I mentioned in the first segment, doxed people that had given money to Trump, as well as his own campaign. He made a mistake. Some of his supporters were actually in that doxing. But he was trying so hard to penalize people for expressing their free will and sending money to a candidate.
Yeah, I think the purpose of him doing that, he takes 20, 30, or 50 names. I'm not sure the exact number of people that probably give more than $100, maybe up to $2,500, and puts their name out there. Well, most people that donate like that, they're known in their community, they're active, and they're successful. And if you got the name and you know what city they're in, you can find them people. And when that happens, there's always radicals out there. There's nuts that have been activated by all the hatred that's being spewed out. Well, that puts these people at risk of being molested by these radical groups and puts fear out there. And now they've put this all over the nation, all over the news. So people living in Beaumont, Banning, and Cherry Valley, they may fear making a donation of $100, $200, $500, or whatever, or even $10 to the Republican Party or Donald Trump, because they might get their name published on the internet or something. And a lot of times it is of record. I've donated thousands and thousands of dollars over the years to different candidates. And it's reported on different websites. Most people don't even bother to look at that. It's other candidates that want to see where they're getting their money from.
Well, the blaming, shaming, and boycotting are actually three different modes of the same thing, and that is targeting. Right, Peter?
Yeah.
What's another example you can tell us?
Well, as far as this targeting, when Mitch McConnell had those people out in front of his house and they were targeting him, I want to know kind of who these people are, because I want to think that these people are disposable people. These are people that are put up by the Democrats. They're probably paid a little bit of money and put on a bus. They might have come from the local city, the homeless encampment. They've been given their methadone from the government, and they've been given their voucher. They get their snack on the way to Mitch McConnell's house, and these people have nothing to lose.
It's kind of like an Antifa, right, Peter? You think?
Worse than that.
It was a verbal Antifa, actually.
These are people who have nothing to lose, and they're being pushed forward, kind of prodded by Castro and others, maybe in Houston and in Dallas, to make a name for yourself.
Tell us what they said.
Yeah, and so, anyways, what Castro said is, and this is why I know Castro's dangerous, because he made this statement about doxing, 40 or 50 people. He heard the replies from his constituents. These were the people that he doxed. And they sent out into the press a warning, a cry, like, why the heck did you do that? And this is what he says. He says, okay, not only am I going to say it once, I'm going to say it twice. And he says, quote, I want you to think twice about supporting a guy who is fueling hate in this country, end quote. They said that Donald Trump is the reason why the El Paso shooter went on his spree.
Oh.
How much more justification does the left need to go out and just cause mayhem? And these are our representatives in Congress.
You're right. And they want to be president.
It's hard to believe they're getting away with this. I mean, this is out and out lying. I mean, it's out and out, it's illegal, it seems to me.
Anybody who's been watching the news, it's been El Paso, El Paso, El Paso. Trump, don't come. You're not welcome. You're the problem, Trump. He, probably donated $5,000 to your campaign. And it's constant. And it's getting dangerous.
But here's the point that I think the listener should know. Did you know that the Dayton shooter was a supporter of Elizabeth Warren? Did you hear that on the news? No, you didn't, because it doesn't fit their agenda. They need to blame, shame, and boycott Trump and his supporters.
And the shooter at the softball game, wasn't he a Bernie supporter?
Oh, yeah. Yes, he was last year, that almost killed a Republican. They were all out there playing baseball. You heard nothing about his motive, did you?
The man walked up and asked a police officer, a White House police officer, are those Democrats or Republicans out on the baseball field? Before he shot Steve Scalise.
Right.
And the guy said, they're Republicans practicing. He pulled out his gun and started shooting.
Right.
He was actually
you don't hear
looking
about
for
that
them.
too much.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the point being that when you are wanting to blame, shame, and boycott, you've got to stick to one story. So it was unfortunate in more ways than one, this Dayton shooter. This is tragic. And I am certainly not going to be like them and try to virtue signal and say Elizabeth Warren caused the shooting. No, she did not. This was a kook. This was a mentally ill person. But the fact of the matter is, when the media withheld the fact that he was a supporter, and he was for climate change, he was for the Green New Deal, he was for Elizabeth Warren. But did you hear one word about that? No.
Oh, heck no.
That should tell the listener that they are trying to lead you down a certain path. And if you're a free thinker out there, you should be angry and you should say, no, I'm not buying this.
Yeah, there is, to me, it's clear, and I know it with certitude, that the media now is working as a unified group to attack Donald Trump and the American people that actually elected him to office. So we're up against a very uniform, organized group of individuals, and they fear stepping outside and being independent because they'll immediately be cut off, they'll be fired, and they'll be boycotted where they can't even get another job. So they have to be obedient sheep to the CNN, MSNBC, the Washington, New York Times, all of them, or they're going to lose a job. And that's what we're up against.
I want to read something that I thought was a pretty good description of this, a pretty good quote. It was in one of the articles that we researched to prepare for the show today. The venom with which one side is attacking the other over things they had nothing to do with has reached a new level in the modern era. I thought that was a pretty profound statement.
Absolutely. And that's something we're going to hit in our third segment, talking about where we are.
And it is venom.
We really have crossed a line here. But the other thing is there were two companies in New York. One is called Soul Cycle. The other is Equinox. And for what I understand, they're very upscale gyms. So you would have to say the top percentage of New Yorkers who can afford these subscriptions go there. They found out that one of the investors, there were a whole bunch of them, but one of them had campaigned actively for Donald Trump. So now they are trying to force the gym people from boycotting the gym that they love and that they paid dearly for. And you had people outside saying this has nothing to do with what's going on in the gym, the people we meet and who they are. They shouldn't be targeting people, but this is part of it. You have to, when you are trying to destroy something, you have to surround it and you have to point at it and say, this is bad. Like a big spider in your bathtub. You have to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's so bad right now. I'll tell you, today, I was told there was a great gathering of people meeting today. As we speak, as a matter of fact, they're meeting. And I was told that the word went out to everybody attending, do not talk about politics. Keep your mouth shut. And I think the reason they're doing that is there's so much bitterness and hatred that's being spewed out that it's affecting people on a daily basis when they meet with each other. They're afraid to say anything. I've had people I thought were friends that I'd helped, not real close friends, but come on and get really bitter and angry because they know I'm a damn Trump supporter. I'm a conservative and registered Republican. And I think the Republicans are too liberal for me. I'm very, very conservative.
You mean the Democrats are too liberal?
The Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm calling.
Oh, you did mean the Republicans too. That's funny.
I'm calling for complete reform of the California Republican Party because they're losing membership and they're failing. We've lost both houses of the legislature and we're in trouble in this state. I know it's off subject. But I'm pushing to do a reform, and people need to talk about politics, but maybe not at every little party.
Well, the Bible says, too, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And so, and unfortunately, the Republicans don't really realize what's happening behind the scenes until it's too late. And now they're starting to. But,
I made a call the other day to Kevin McCarthy's office yet again. I don't bother him, but I did call him a month or two ago. And I said, as the minority leader of the GOP in the House, why are the Republicans silent? You have a president out there who is the only one defending himself and the 63 million people who voted for him. Where are you? Where is your messaging? This is important.
Yes.
That they
He's one
let
of the
us
leaders.
know that they do not believe these stories about the president or his supporters.
Well, isn't Kevin McCarthy from California?
Yes.
Okay, so here the Republican Party in California is the establishment Washington, the same old entrenched politics. Think of the establishment in Washington, okay? That's what I think of a Republican Party in California. And Trump didn't even come here to California because the Republican Party was such
Well,
fence
see,
sitters.
I knew that about McCarthy, but I felt it was important for him to know that we are here.
Yes,
We are watching
of
that he
course.
is not supporting, and we're wondering why. That
Yeah.
he's supposedly our party.
And he needs to hear from us, the Tea Party in California, because we have gone underground. I've just been a new member of it. I've been welcomed, and I found some identity here with my friends. I think we have to start making some noise. This was made very clear to me when I was young, watching the presidential election between Gore and Bush. And it all came down to one county in Florida. I think it was Miami-Dade.
Yes.
And they were doing the recount.
Mhm.
Okay, and I saw a bunch of angry white men standing at the door shouting, "Stop the count! Stop the count!" And I thought, what are these crazy guys doing? Okay, they had enough, because in front of their eyes, they were watching the election stole from them.
Yeah, exactly.
And they had to make some noise. The left has been making noise for 50 years, and the Republican Party is sat on their hands. Trump is making some noise. And if we don't get behind him, he's going to get shouted out of the room.
So true. And you know what? These are wise words. We've got to cut for a commercial, but I want to tell you folks, stay tuned, because in the first segment, we talked about the targeting. Then we talked about the blame, shame, and boycott. And lastly, we're going to tell you what the media is doing now and how they are working on you psychologically. And as an American, don't buy it. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Conservative Voice Radio. This is our third segment. This is Jan Reed. And again, I want to say I'm sitting here with Glenn, Peter, and Diane, and we've been going over this traumatic week that we've had as a nation. We had gone over the whole situation, starting with the shootings, and then we wound up with a kind of branding that has been going on from the left, which I now honestly believe the Democrat Party has gone far left. So they've targeted Trump and his supporters with, as what Peter mentioned, was first that he was a racist, then he was a nationalist, then he was a white nationalist, now he's a white supremacist. I mean, just folks, when I do that rundown, can't you see that this is an agenda and this is a measure of hate that is being brushed against the right, whether you're in the middle right or the far right. But this week it was a red line. I think a red line was crossed. And the reason I say that, here are some of the things that were actually said by the media. Nicole Wallace, who is on MSNBC, actually repeated some wacko's claim and said it herself. And this is the quote. Trump is, quote, talking about exterminating Latinos. Now, that got me so horrified that I actually called MSNBC and I said, I need to talk to someone about a program. I have never asked that someone be fired, but I felt that this was something that could possibly get people killed, could cause all kinds of civil strife in our nation, just saying something so untrue, so blatantly a lie.
That's so dangerous, too. That's outright slander and libel. That is just out. What the heck?
Exactly.
Right.
And on Morning Joe, what's her name? Mika Brzezinski said that Trump actually wanted more of these mass shootings. So this is why I'm saying, folks, if you're listening, this is the media going over the line. As an American, are you going to take this?
This is being done for a reason. And I think what they're trying to do is activate crazy people out there to actually attack Donald Trump. And they're out there. They're crazy
or
people.
His supporters.
On both sides.
Innocent people.
And it's got out of hand. And I think they've made a decision that the only way they're going to be able to stop him is possibly take him out. To actually go out there and say he's exterminating people and just spew nothing but hatred, that he's the one responsible for these shootings and everything else. That's just spewing out lies and hatred.
And you remember, Peter, how the AOC mentioned concentration camps. You see, folks, how they've been leading up to this. This is not by accident.
Yeah, I think the plan is to try to do something that really harm conservatives and conservative leaders. I mean, look what happened to Mitch McConnell. They're out there cussing, saying, "Stab him, put a knife
Stab
through his
him
heart."
through the heart, they said.
Yeah, and somebody filmed it and posted it. And what happened? Twitter said, "Oh no, you can't put that on there. We don't want to expose the degenerate people that are back in the Democratic Party and spewing hatred against Republicans."
Good
point,
so
Glenn.
essentially, the video that showed that people were threatening and hoping Mitch McConnell would die was taken off Twitter because they said it was violent. Well, Mitch McConnell wanted it on Twitter to say, "This is what's being done to me."
And didn't they censor Mitch McConnell too?
Yes, they locked his account.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was Mitch McConnell that put
That
it
shows
on.
you.
Yeah, they all work together as a team, a radical team. And I've been saying it on the radio for a year or so. I think we got some criminally minded individuals that have taken over the Democratic Party leadership, not the Democratic citizens. It's the leadership now that's got control of the Democratic Party.
Well, and that's true, Peter. When I talk about you folks out there listening, I mean Democrats as well. They're good people. Absolutely. They don't mean this kind of evil that's going on.
And
it's the media and the leadership that's going in this direction.
And the forces also that control the media, that are behind the media.
Hey, and it's coming to Beaumont. Last night at about 6 o'clock, I went to dinner in Beaumont, and we seen a lot of activity on Michigan Avenue. Well, this morning I heard that some guy come running out yielding a couple knives, and I don't know if he attacked the police or what, but they may have shot him and killed him. I don't know.
Really?
Wow.
For sure. That's what I've heard. I don't know that to be a fact.
There's a lot of homeless in that area, and I'm in that area. Me and Jim are, because our gym's right down there. And I've seen in the last month, I've seen young women, 18, 19, 20 years old, walking down in that area of Ramsey and Pennsylvania at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
And these women are being trafficked by the homeless population that's coming through our community.
Oh, my.
And I've talked with Beaumont police officers who are my friends about this, and they said there's a huge uptick of prostitution, of drug trafficking, under the tracks right there on Pennsylvania, and it stretches all the way down to Highland Springs. They live back behind the restaurants and things there, and it's all going on. There's been 3 murders there in the last year.
Oh,
okay,
my.
And
Right
we're
here
not talking
locally.
about, we're not in Beaumont. We're not talking about it. And Banning right on the other side behind the
We're not talking
Albertsons.
about L.A. We need to do a program about that.
Absolutely. Right. This notion that this hatred and these concentration camps are being built in the United States is a fraud, and it's a smokescreen, and it's what the left is just throwing to see what will stick to the wall. Look, there's nothing more efficient than shaming a people into not voting. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to group anybody that has any kind of proclivity, leaning to Trump, or maybe the economy's good, or if you have any inclination to lean this man's way, you should feel bad about who you are. And this is also part of the agenda, not just the incitement of just pure hatred and anger, but also to shame a great majority of the people. And we can't be, taking our vote away from us just by our emotions. We have to be active.
Americans are better than that.
I think so.
If you talk to the local police departments, most of the police will explain to you that the reason we're having a massive increase in all kinds of crime in California is because the state legislature, controlled by the Democratic majority, supermajority, passed a series of laws reducing felonies down to misdemeanors and emptying our prisons with tens of thousands of criminals that should remain locked up for a number of years. Just recently, they say that stabber in Orange County that killed 4 people with a machete was just released from prison for some activity.
That's right. I read
illegal.
that too, Glenn.
As part of the program to let these people out early. Yes, he was in that program.
That Prop 54, which was written specifically to benefit illegal alien criminals, forcing local police not to cooperate with federal officials to deport illegal alien criminals. It wasn't bothering people that are undocumented living here or working. It was specifically to benefit criminals by the California state legislature controlled by the supermajority Democratic Party, and we better damn well change that this year.
You know, I need to point something out and remind the folks listening. First, when this was brought up and people said they were concerned about the open border, we were all called racist. And that is the point. Here it is, folks. When you target someone, you point at something and you make them the bad guy, not what it's about. It was that you're the bad guy, I'm the good guy, I'm virtue signaling. But the whole issue of why people are coming through the border and who they might be gets tossed away because you're busy pointing and saying you're a racist. Do you see how you're being played, folks?
Yeah,
And notice how this is corporate too. All the media, all the far left media. It's corporate.
I just heard Bernie Sanders say that we need to give everyone who has got a student loan in the last 10 years, give them a freebie, give them a pass. What are we doing? We're taking a large group of people who are disenfranchised. They can't buy a home. They can't buy a car because they got this debt hanging over them. And Obama bought it in 2010 or 12, and you can't declare bankruptcy on that debt. You're stuck with it. Probably go to your grandkids. The thing is now they're taking this large group of economic disenfranchised people that have lived in the last 20 years, and they're saying, if we don't forgive your debt, you're going to have to hate them. And that's what it's becoming. And if it's not economic, it's racial. If it's not racial, it's some other kind of status. And it's just disgusting, and it's getting old. And if they don't fight real evil, they fight this kind of made up stuff like environmentalism.
Right.
You know, I think one of the problems is you got individuals, they get a little bit of education, they get a profession, and they're making pretty good money here in California. They're happy. They don't really give a damn about all these problems as long as they got their gated community, they got big government income or maybe a private job.
Private security.
They got it made, and they got their private security, and the hell with everybody else.
That's
Human
right.
nature.
That's right.
Now, I would like to say, too, I think we really need to pray for our president, our beloved president, Donald Trump. And here's the thing, too. If Pence was to become president, and Pence is a very good man. I mean, very, very good man. I mean, they would be like, oh, we don't have Donald Trump, but look, you know, we have Pence now. But Pence is very quiet. He's very low key and stuff like that. And I'm thinking the characters they have right now that are running against Donald Trump, I don't think they have, a rat's, in hell to go against Donald Trump. But maybe they wouldn't against Pence because he doesn't defend himself so much, and he's a really good guy, and he would be a stellar president. But he's quiet, and so I would pray for our president, bottom line. And like Glenn says, they're encouraging, something to happen to him, and he needs to keep up his security, and we need to pray for him.
And I expect the Republicans throughout California and the nation to speak up. Are you just going to silently let people tag you, blame you, boycott you, and then try to get rid of you?
And define you.
And by the way, let me give you that last point. They just made a movie in Hollywood. There's big brouhaha about it. It's called The Hunt. It's about the 1% whose joy in life is once a year. They own this huge, huge farm, and they kidnap deplorables, meaning Trump supporters, and they let them loose on the property while they prey on them and shoot them to kill. This is an actual Hollywood production that was made by actors for your pleasure. Now, if you don't think that these people are, pardon the French hell-bent on getting rid of any opposition, this movie is proof positive.
What they've done, Jan, is most people don't have a backbone and they won't speak up and fight against this damnable evil. So the few that do, they want to try to put a target on their back for the degenerate nuts out there to try to take a few of them out and maybe even shut them up and make them nervous. We've seen Trump supporters had their heads bashed in for wearing a Trump hat. Now, that's the kind of idiots out there they're living in the country right now. And it's all come about because of the mass media that's preaching unadulterated hatred of Donald Trump and his supporters. That's what's causing, in my opinion, a lot of these people to flip out on both sides.
Yeah, this is a good indication to me that their tactic on the left is not working because they're getting so extreme, which kind of gives me hope that what we're doing in the silent majority is working. What Glenn is talking about is so true. We don't like to wear a Trump hat, or we won't put a sticker on our car because we know the idiot that's out there is going to do something, scratch our car or cause a scene or whatever. So we don't do it. But it's gotten to the point now where we got to start making some noise because they need to know how many people are tired of this, the hunt, the movie, slaughter, the deplorable.
Right.
That's not entertainment. We're not entertained by that. That's disgusting. And all these movies that are all about survival and the end of the world and all that stuff, how they glamorize it. We don't want to watch that anymore. Why don't you make something that stir us happiness and up? The Democrats have nothing positive to say. That's all I have. It's a telling thing.
Well, you hit a point there, Peter. We've hit a nerve.
Yeah.
That's why they're so desperate. And
They're so desperate.
Yeah.
They're flailing like a wounded animal.
Well, those are wise words from my fellow Tea Partiers, and I love you guys, and I love you, the listeners, and I'm going to let these folks say goodbye. Glenn?
I'm praying Trump's elected big time 2020 and the Democrats lose California.
It doesn't take much to speak your principles. That's all.
I'll leave you with the scripture, Revelations 19:11 through 16. And Jesus is Lord.
Amen, Diane. I love that. Thank you for listening, folks. Check in next week. Have a good week.
Adios.